Full disclosure, the voice you are listening to now is artificially generated, brought to you by satisphonic.com. See the link in the description for more details. What's an actual victimless crime? Owning 7 dildos in Texas. I would pay to see the deliberation that led to the decision that owning 6 dildos is fine, but 7 is a crime. 7 is the number of God. Satan's is 6. If Satan had picked a higher number, we could have more dongs. You can't own more dildos than God? I have bad news to tell my wife after reading this. Sleeping in your car when you are too drunk and can't drive. Many years ago, there was a big to-do in Maryland because cops kept hassling truckers to move on when they had pulled over to catch some sleep. Do cops not realize that trucks have recording devices known as tachographs installed to monitor the driving times, breaks and rest periods of individual drivers, unless that's just Europe? American cops tend not to give a shit. Just don't sleep in the driver's seat. Can still get a dewey just for being behind the wheel, even in a parked car. Edit. And apparently in a lot of places just for being inside the car and having possession of the keys, which is nothing. One time I got drunk at a party and had planned to just stay at the house because it was my friend's party, but after I got drunk and it was like 1 a.m, they informed I couldn't stay the night. So the friend I came with and I just slept in my car on the street in a permit parking only spot. I slept in the driver's seat and my friend slept in the passenger seat. I got woke up around 6 a.m. to someone knocking on my window. It was a police officer and he said I should be sleeping in my car in a permit parking only section. I told him the situation and made sure to point out the keys were in the cup holder, not in ignition, and he was really nice and really good about it. Just thanked me for not drinking and driving and told me to take my time sobering up. I slept for another hour or so and then woke up again and drove home. It was a good moment with a cop. In many states, you can get a dewey for having the keys on you and being asleep in the back seat. A buddy of mine beat that charge by putting his keys in the trunk and just locked the doors from the inside. He got woken up by a cop and was given the tests. He was too drunk to finish them still. He was asked where his keys were and he said in the trunk, "I can't get to them unless I hit the button under the dash."
Whee!
She was still too drunk to point out. The cop let him go back to sleep. Fuck, I just got checkmated by a drunk guy. Fair enough, have a good night. That's awful. You over-imbibe and do the right thing by not driving home and then get arrested for being smart and conscientious. I guess the saying no good deed goes unpunished really is true. Yup, isn't it great low? Too drunk and spend the night sleeping in your car? Ticket. The best was when my dad was drunk, called me to pick him up. I told the bar manager what was going on and if it was cool to leave his car there and get it in the morning. Guy says sure, I take dad home. Next day we go to get it and bar owner had it towed and cost us nearly $500 to get it back. What even is the right thing to do, but you seem to get punished no matter what. That bar would have mysteriously sustained nearly $500 in damages somehow. That bar McGurr is a fucking jerk. How many times at my old job, bar, we let people leave their cars if they were too drunk. We called whoever, no taxis in that area, and Uber didn't exist, to come get them. We had a bowl for left behind cars to put the keys in, tagged them with the person's name, paper tape, and initialed it with date and time. They usually showed up the next day, only after a week, showed up the next day, only after a week, times 2 for regulars. Our owner gave them that amount of time, he knew the people. Some were alcoholics and struggling, and possibly forgot where they parked their car, and he didn't want to screw them over. There's various scenarios to why he gave that amount of time, but yeah, that mug you dealt with was a fucking jerk. I'm sorry you and your dad went through that. Absolutely. A friend of mine went to a club, got a little drunk, started driving home. Immediately realized she was too drunk, pulled over into a lot not a block away, turned off the car, locked up, went to sleep. Cops woke her up a few hours later, hit her with a dewey. She was able to get it dismissed by the judge, but it never should have gotten that far. If someone does the right thing and sleeps it off, why punish them for it? Tons of blue laws. Basically antiquated laws on the books that have to do with religion, mostly on Sundays. In my state, you can't buy alcohol on Sunday before noon, and car dealers are not allowed to be open on Sunday. Basically, they are designed to not compete with church attending times like early morning. My biggest problem with those laws is that the majority of people don't go to church anymore. Sunday has just become another weekend day. The prohibition of liquor sales on Sunday is ridiculous cause for that. And also the separation of church and state thing. Downloading very old games that are no longer available for sale. The Sims and The Sims 2 are a great example of this. I'd pay money for them if they'd actually still sell them, but we have to resort to other means to get them. There's no legal way to play the Deadpool game. It's not even that old. It's just that Activision's license to produce Marvel games expired. Because of this, the only way to play it is by pirating it. That kind of shit pisses me off. I bought a copy of the Phase 10 game for Android like 5 years ago because I enjoyed playing it while I was waiting for things. I even paid $10 for it to get the ads removed. Then one day they were like, oops, license expired, sorry, and blocked the game from being used, even in single-player mode. Now some other company made a version of it and I refused to give Mattel any more money for it. At least I was smart enough to take screenshots of all their alternate phases before the game was discontinued, so I can at least play those phase sets with the real cards. Eat it. Since people asked, here are the alternate set of phases they had in that game. The same with Lord of the Rings. Battle for Middle-earth 1 and 2. EA lost the license to distribute Lofi games, and now it's nowhere legally available anymore. All old software needs to go into an open source repository after some period of time. So much effort just going to waste. Nintendo would have an aneurysm, but yes, absolutely. No reason why newer generations shouldn't be able to enjoy old games. I honest to God have no clue why they don't see the absolute goldmine they're sitting on if they released all their ROMs on emulator on the Switch. They're slowly releasing some of them, but why the heck can't they release their Jabishpow Pokemon or other games on the Switch? They had them on 3ds, but not Switch of some reason. And even the ones they do have, they're behind subscription bullshit. Just sell off N60 Forceless Clark titles for like $5. 10 a pop on an emulator store. That's all I'm asking for. There is a term for it, abandonware. I remember interviewing a really cool public relations guy at Night to Dive, a company that hunts down the rights to old games and re-releases them. When I mentioned abandonware, he said my lawyer advises me that there's no such thing as abandonware. There's a couple movies I'm willing to pay money to own, but I cannot, for I am in America and there's stupid trademark issues. Edit. The movies are the others starring Nicole Kidman and The Killing Floor starring Mark Blucke. Edit 2. Today I learned the others is coming out on Criterion later this year. Is one of them Dogma? 'Cause I got the DVD, although it's Europe zoned. And I'm happy to relinquish it for a reasonable offer. Edit. Any advance on Trifidi? Even Kevin Smith told people to just bootleg it. Emulating and/or pirating a game that is no longer available by any means. A new report says 87% of games released before 2010 are no longer commercially available, and it's a huge loss. Huts, New Depths, Google, Commam Samth the Guardian, Congamis 20, Free Jolt Well Pushing, Buttons Playing, Condamis 20, Free Jolt Well Pushing, Buttons Playing, Old. Thankfully, this is causing the US Library of Congress to rethink the exemption on gaming companies, providing them working copies of source code to ensure the games can always work. Working copies of source code to ensure the games can always work, you have to also archive the computer that runs that code, or at least a virtual machine that simulates it. Let's say you have an old Apple game. You'll need a 6502 processor to run it. Luckily, this is pretty easy. You could run a simulator in a web browser for 30-year-old computers now. But it kind of has to be maintained. The emulator itself might not run on any commercially sold hardware in 30 more years. I believe they think about this for old movies and old audio recordings. Ideally, you go through a process where you digitize them once, then keep maintaining it throughout the ages as formats change. But before digital, if you had some cylinder records for a phonograph, you had to also store a working phonograph in order to play them, Tips, N, Wikipedia, or Wikiphonograph. In all fairness, they made a ton of shit games in the 90s. Tech caught up, and it was easy to pump out games, so they made them for everything. Even surreals had video games. I know you're not throwing shade on Chex Quest. I'd add, pirating media you've already bought because you need it in a different format. Pirating a game because your CD version won't work anymore. Putting coins in someone else's parking meter. I don't understand why this would become illegal in the first place, other than to just jack up fines, which tells me some crooked people made this a law. They don't want one car to take up a parking slot for a long time. Stores want high turnover so they can get more customers in the same period of time. They'd rather have 3 people shop for 1 hour each than one person shop for 3 hours. That's a crime. How does anyone know you mistook it for your meter? Seriously, I live in an area with very minimal metered street parking downtown. I barely know how to use the damn things. They are so unusual here. These laws specifically target meter fairies, who would go down the street adding time to everyone's meters. It also used to be a thing to follow the meter attendant around and put coins in meters before they gave a ticket. Jaywalking when there are no cars on the road. In the state of Colorado, they took jaywalking off as a criminal offense. Now you can't get arrested unless you cause an accident or impede traffic in such a way that it ruins daily traffic. Also, they hand you a pamphlet about the risks of jaywalking. Edit, my most upvoted comment. Jaywalking was a kinda made-up crime perpetuated by the growing U.S. auto injury to make it seem like cars weren't as dangerous as they are. It was also to redefine roads, which had existed for thousands of years, as something exclusively for cars. Basically this. It was a way for auto manufacturers to essentially steal the largest infrastructure network in the world. Yeah. In Denver, police don't even respond to actual crime anymore. I saw a guy crash and SUV, jump out and run away, and leave half the car protruding into the road, where I saw several people almost hit it. I called the police and stressed that it was going to cause another accident if not dealt with. The operator asked if I could hang around to talk to police, so I went and shot hoops by myself and waited. I played for 2 hours and they never showed. Luckily, about 30 mine and the guy across the street brought out some safety cones and put them down. I finally started walking back to my friend's place, and maybe 3 blocks over, there were 2 cops sitting window and laughing it up. Got to my friend's house, hung out for another hour, and walked back, and the wreck was still there, going on 4 hours later. In Germany, they'll tell you the kids who see you cross are the victims, who get peer pressured into a lifetime of criminality. This is 1000% true. I just got peer pressured into dropping nuclear bombs on East China after watching Oppenheimer. East China Japan is definitely going to be upset about that characterization. Won't you think of the poor ants? Downloading a car. You wouldn't. Many things if they're simply not witnessed. Taking off your pants in the park at night is absolutely a crime, actually 2 separate crimes. But if nobody is there to see it, no harm has been done, and there is nobody to be bothered that you trespassed after sundown. Even just going to a park or whatever that's closed after, say, 10. I totally get that there's a reason for that, but if I'm just going to stargaze, it's still a crime. I used to work for a community race center that had an outdoor park. I was a supervisor, so my job was to lock all the doors. The park closed at 10 p.m, Recenter closed at 11 p.m. One night I locked everything up and went outside, where my friend was waiting to pick me up. I get in the car just after 11 p.m. We're sitting talking for maybe 10 minutes when a police car pulls up right behind us with the lights on. Police officer comes up to the window and asks for both our IDs. I tell him I just finished working at the Reese Center. I even showed him my t-shirt with the name and logo of a place on it. He calls for backup or they just show up. He calls for backup or they just show up. Either way, within 10 minutes there's 3 cars and they're running our names and asking all kinds of questions. They asked me 3 different times if I had any warrants. I had just moved back to the US and was only here for like 3 months at that point. Only had my passport as ID, not even a driver's license. All that was sitting in a parking lot, next to a parking lot, next to a park. Not super related, but kind of. I went to get Taco Bell one night at about midnight. I lived about a mile away. I decided to just put along on the frontage road and eat the burrito on the way back to my house. I was going slow, not in a hurry. Then this black sedan comes up on my ass, fast. I take the next left off of the frontage road to get out of his way, and he turns after me.
Wow, what a coincidence.
I was just trying to get out of this guy's way, and he ended up going the same direction. Less than a block from that turn was a parking lot for a Best Buy. I turn into, again, get out of this guy's way, and he turns into the closed parking lot. What thinks? I didn't think I did anything to be targeted by someone, and I had no idea what was going on, so I just pulled into a parking spot and kept eating my burrito. He had stopped at the entrance and was just sitting there. Eventually he drives in front of the facade, and I see the laptop at the center console. Ah, cop. He ends up pulling behind me and turning on his lights. I make a point to have my papers ready, but be mid-bite as he walked up to the window. Cop, what are you doing me? Eating a burrito C. Why are you doing it here? Mem, I was eating it on the road, but I kept trying to get out of your way, and you followed me in here. Cop takes my stuff and goes back to his car. Comes back. You're free to go, but just know that you aren't allowed to park in business parking lots after hours, me. Lorok, like I said, not super related, but it was a situation where I had a reason to be a place I wasn't allowed to be, just to be questioned by a cop. I was driving at the drunk driving hours, so he was probably just scouting for that. But still, the situation was silly. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had turned out of the parking lot and kept going. It would have probably really looked like I was evading him and gotten me into trouble. Ah, our tax dollars at work. Nothing like a bully looking for a target. Eating food out of someone's garbage. Linus has entered the chat. No one really talks to me. I just come for the deviled eggs. I'll just slip in a little later and have some food. I'm eyeing that scrumptious-looking pie. Rune expected Stardew Valley. You're starving the raccoons, you sick fucker. Lots of places have sodomy laws. So, for example, it's a crime for two consenting married adults to have oral sex in the privacy of their own home. Also illegal to buy a dildo. Edit. Not specifically talking about the US, although some states in the US still have some laws, but aren't really enforced. My town actually has some anti-pagan laws, so you can't have specific types of gatherings on certain nights of the year. But how would they even know? That's what I was wondering. Let's say a person wanted to report their neighboring couple for committing that crime, and they needed proof. So they set up a camera to catch them in the act. Wouldn't that just create a whole new crime? Or would they be protected because of their reasons? Lol. As the other guy said, it's not about enforcement. It's about sending a message to homosexual men. There is no way of telling who is likely to engage in such activities other than a couple consisting of two men. As such, the law was created to be enforced solely in those instances. Dumpster diving. What should be illegal is destroying perfectly good food and consumer goods simply because they are out of season and people won't spend ridiculous amounts of money to buy them. And instead of giving them out for free or at really discounted prices or donating to shelters and those in needs, giant corporations decide to destroy goods and make it illegal for people to look through their dumpsters and repurpose those items. I will say there is a place in my city called the Grocery Spot that runs on donations from places like the Fresh Market and Whole Foods and the like to bring good, nutritious food to those in need. All of it is given away for free to anyone who needs it, even if you don't directly live in the community they serve. Really good, high-quality stuff too. Organic eggs, real meat and poultry, fresh produce and fruits, milk, bread, etc. I find that to be so much better than throwing away food because it's past to sell, by date when so many people would gladly take it home to eat. Sorry, rant over. When I worked at Walmart of all places, they donated an absolute shit ton of food. In fact, the only food that got thrown out was stuff where the packaging was damaged or if frozen refrigerated food was left out for an unknown amount of time, so we didn't know if it was contaminated. The reason the dumpsters were locked is because people would intentionally eat the questionable rotten food out of them so they could get sick and try to sue Walmart. Also, you know, because going into a dumpster is really dangerous if you don't know what is in there already. You know what's funny? I came to post my experience of working at Wally. We threw out everything, clothes, food, household goods, etc., into a compactor too, so they ensured it got destroyed. I remember getting into an argument with a manager because an employee accidentally opened a pack of paper towels when slicing open the cardboard box. The 6-pack of paper towels were fine, just a slice in the plastic wrap. As a result, I was instructed to toss the pack. I see jaywalking on this quite a bit, but I will say when I lived overseas, jaywalking even at 2 a.m. on an empty street just didn't happen. When I asked a local German why he wouldn't cross against a no walking sign, he said, "What if a kid looked out the window and saw me? I don't want to set a bad example." Depends on the country. Germany is at one end. The US is kinda closer to Germany on the scale. France, Spain, Italy, Greece, yay, they are crossing without even looking. As an earnest, I give a lot of shit away to patients against the rules or advise them where they can get it cheaper. Big hospitals have more money than God, but want me to send you home with a war-2 wound supplies for a wound that will take 4 weeks to heal. Fuck that. Here's a box of 50 for your purse. I never gave that to you. Hey, you need crutches, and here they are. But first, before you sign that you got these crutches are $1,000. The same or better are on Amazon for $50 or less. I'm not telling you how to live your life, but I can offer you a free wheelchair ride out to your son's car. You could argue that the hospital is the victim here. I'm telling you that the hospital gets a discount on supplies and marks them up 1,000% to sell to those going through an emergency. Who's really the victim? Edited. Appreciate all the support. Don't take this the wrong way, but I hope I never have the pleasure of taking care of any of you. Stay healthy, people, and keep living your life the best you can. To those saying I could get fired for this, I appreciate the concern. I can almost guarantee I will one day be fired for this. It's worth it to me. I will get another job in a different era and continue my work. Regarding the people saying I'm contributing to the problem. The problem is in the user healthcare model, everything from insurance to COs. If my treatment and proper care of the individual is contributing to the problem, frankly, I don't think I care to bitch. I will continue. Lastly, various arguments have been made to if this is a victimless crime or not. I don't disagree with some, but it's the closest thing I have to answer the question. Apologies if it doesn't 100% fit. Stay beautiful, people. So, this just happened to me in the past month. I was out of state visiting my kids and had to go to the ER because I did something to my shoulder, was in a ton of pain, couldn't lift my arm, etc., etc. Get to the ER and realize that I didn't have my insurance card with me. No problem, just bill me. I'll file it with my insurance after I get the bill. Note, my insurance has an out-of-network visit set at $500. So get home, a few weeks later, get the bill from the ER. Oh, we noticed that you didn't have insurance on file, so we do understand that hospital bills can be hard, so we've given you the uninsured discount of $250. What? So if I file with my insurance, I'll end up paying twice what the hospital is going to charge me for paying in cash. Guess what I did? We recently moved from an apartment to a house. Due to some complications and delays, I couldn't be there for the morning of moving day, so my wife would have to handle the movers getting stuff from our apartment. Furniture. Only we moved all the boxes ourselves. But she didn't feel confident handling it and asked her parents to come down. Long story short, it's a rainy day and my file decides the first thing he should do upon entering the new house with wet shoes on is head into the basement, where he proceeds to slip and fall down literally every stair. Yes, there is a railing. He gets to the hospital and without thinking tells the doctor that he fell at his daughter's new house. He wasn't malicious, he just wasn't thinking. I, of course, want them to be oak. He had to have surgery, but is otherwise now fine. But I'm bracing for his insurance to sue our new homeowner's insurance, making my life hell for the foreseeable future. Except Total Bro Doctor lists undisclosed location as source of the fall, saving my ass thousands upon thousands of dollars in future costs against my insurance. What the hell is wrong with your country? I mean, like, yay, nice doctor, but why on earth is it even possible for an insurance company to sue your homeowner's insurance? Like, what the hell? Not that it's right, but the idea is that it's our responsibility. So the medical insurance goes after our homeowner's insurance, since we're technically at fault. It's a stupid fucking system. I think I remembered reading a story a few years ago where a girl fell at her aunt's house, and it caused a rift between the family because the girl's medical insurance was forced to sue the aunt when she broke her arm. Reminds me we used to hunt on a nice farmer's property, always asked him first. We took a couple years off hunting, and when we went back he said he couldn't let people do that anymore. Some guy did the same thing, but brought an ATV, wrecked it on the farmer's property, and sued the farmer because he got injured. Like, bro, you did it to yourself. Honestly, it ought to be illegal to profit from people who are under life-threatening circumstances. This creates duress and unfair leverage. Hospitals should be legally required to be non-profit entities, and no life-saving intervention should be allowed to be performed or sold at a profit. Eating a magic mushroom you found in nature. Calm down there, Mario. Downloading games for obsolete consoles from companies which are now non-existent. Loitering in a ghost town. Setting up a lemonade stand without a vendor license. Oftentimes, The license is $5. They mostly want to warn people about food safety to make sure the stand doesn't end up unwittingly make people sick. Crossing an empty road on a red light. I'm glad my state actually made this legal for motorcycles in my state after waiting a reasonable amount of time. Basically so you wouldn't get stuck at lights that wouldn't recognize motorcycles. I had to do that sometimes late at night on my motorcycle when I couldn't get it to trip the stoplight and nobody else was around. It was a lighter motorcycle, and I was lighter back then myself. Contrary to popular belief, it has nothing to do with weight. The circles are induction coils, and they detect electromagnetic interference caused by metallic objects. Your motorcycle didn't contain enough metal, or you didn't stop over the coils. Pirating cute cat videos off the internet. Assisting the suicide of a terminally ill person in unrelenting pain. In most jurisdictions in the world. Yay, I feel like it's unfair. Someone else has more power to decide what happens to me than me. If I want to tie my tubes or remove my uterus, or have a decent way to end things, and I'm willing to pay for that, why some rich and powerful dude who never met me before can say I decided you can't. How is it not my decision? Hanging a clothesline, collecting rainwater, or planting a garden in your yard. Some places ban you from doing these things. Everyone is pulling out their rainwater knowledge. But what the heck is wrong with using a clothesline? It's like collecting rainwater, but with sunlight. You have to allow some of the sunlight to flow downstream to your neighbors. People always bring up rainwater on this type of post. The thing is, those laws usually aren't about putting a barrel on your downspout. They're usually about building large reservoirs. Quite often it's not so much that you're collecting rainwater, it's that you're collecting so much that you're denying your downhill neighbors their fair share or damaging the environment. And the mosquitoes. People don't maintain their cisterns and what have I done? Feeding the homeless. Feeding the homeless. In many nations, homosexuality, blasphemy. Ironically, blasphemy laws are themselves blasphemous, as they imply that a supposedly omnipotent deity is incapable of defending itself without human intervention. If a god has a problem with me blaspheming, it can come down here and tell me so itself. It shouldn't need its followers to say or do anything on its behalf. Giving water to voters in lines in Gap. I can take a seed at home, put rainwater on it and expose it to sunlight, dry the flowers, bake them into a cake and make some HMC edibles, and it doesn't even harm the air quality due to smoking. That's a crime. No money goes to criminal gangs, and I would risk losing my job and going to prison. Or I can manufacture alcohol and sell it legally, knowing that it causes people health issues, and that others cause crimes when drunk and disorderly, and that's absolutely fine and not a crime. Weird. I get what you mean, but between the two there's one major difference in your two paragraphs. With weed, you're talking about yourself only. With alcohol, you're selling it to others. If I brew my own alcohol and drink it myself, it's no different than weed in that perspective. Edit. I absolutely understand what everyone is saying below, but some of you should read my statement again. I'm talking about one perspective of the scenario. Being irrationally irritated at someone being happy doesn't make anyone, even the government, a victim.